Hi everyone, Luke here at the start of the episode again. Just like I said last week, this is a CNC episode that was in the hopper in place of a normal episode due to terrible scheduling on our back end. I also want to let you know ahead of time that the sliding into the DM section, my own microphone betrayed me, as it so often does, and there's a horrific click sound anytime I make a sound. My apologies. It's rough and bad audio, which we try to avoid. Third is that our Q&A, our mailbag, is still impending. We have a final date, folks, so I'm no longer a liar. You have until midnight, Saturday, October 7th, to get your questions in. Patreon, Instagram, Discord, please send them in, and we will answer them in due time. With all of that, I hope you enjoy this episode of CNC, this episode out of time.
Welcome back to Conversations in Catapults. I'm your host, Nathan, and today I am joined by three intrepid reporters. Say hello, intrepid reporters.
Hello, I am a reporter, totally legit, and my name is Ben, and I play the Gnome Wizard Windsor Wallaby on the hit podcast Trials and Trebuchets. That's my alias.
Breaking news! It's me, Carla, and I play the level 12 Tiefling Rogue Lock Integrity. I don't know what Intrepid is. That sounds like a centipede.
Isn't that the character you play on Trials and Trebuchets?
Ha!
Hi, I'm a really good journalist, which is why I had a mysterious accident where I zipped myself into a body bag and was found dead. And I play Mira Marchand, the level 12 half-elf bard on the hit podcast Trials and Trebuchets.
God damn.
The fuck, Sarah?
Were you also thrown out of a window?
I know what happens to really good journalists.
God damn.
Jesus.
Extra, read all about it. Unfortunately, Sam could not join us for this recording. Today, we are going over the last two episodes. I believe those were 237 and 238. Am I correct there?
Correct.
C.
Perfect.
Nothing.
Where we had a combat in which... Sam can't be here because Serenept was feeble-minded and is now incapable
Oh
of
my
speech.
God.
Yeah.
Can't understand speech,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
You know, it would make things difficult.
It's
But
meta.
we did have a combat against some feisty golems and Professor Young, and then you all decided to disperse the information and technology and blueprints that Crowe has been amassing over time here. So I wanted to actually talk about less about the combat and more about the big dichotomy that came in that second episode, where it was Winsler and Mira primarily, and I would love to hear where integrity fell on the spectrum between destroying all of the information or trying to devalue it by making it widely available. I would love to hear, Ben, is there a character reason why Winsler was just no, we should destroy it? Is it anything, having any amount of this information in Crowe's hands would be wrong?
Yeah, I think just having this stuff be in Crowe's possession is just not a good idea. And so far, this is technology that is currently in the possession of somebody who is very evil and is actively plotting things that are very evil. So I don't know if anyone else had technology like this. Would they also be using it for their own means? Would they also be using it to further their evil goals? I don't think anybody should be trusted with something like these. These are basically borderline weapons almost. Some of them not exactly. They're more it's living wood, it's living steel. You can do a lot of cool infrastructure with that, but I don't know. I can't look past the fact that somebody could just use this for terrible things.
Absolutely. And that makes sense given that Winsler has trusted Crowe Mercantile with, designs, blueprints, etc. before and has gotten burned on it.
Yeah,
Absolutely
the golem
makes
plans
sense.
have been used for evil.
It's true.
There is nothing good that can come from Crowe having any sort of technology like this.
Sarah, do you go ahead?
Well, okay. So in terms of the golems, I think we're on the same page there. But I think in terms of getting it distributed, it's a few things, right? I think the first thing is that Crowe is not an idiot. All of these blueprints, he would have backups of, almost certainly. He's going to have backups of anything. So the only thing that destroying a lot of this info would do, I think, is guaranteeing that the only person who can access it is Crowe. One other good thing about, for example, like golems that could kill people having publicly available plans is that if a golem that is like a military contracted creature that's trying to kill you gets out in the world, people now know how to disassemble it too, right? And I think in terms of the other technology, it's a thing of like for Mira, I feel like for a while, Mira has been a woman of the people in the sense of, you know, going for school-related political office, trying to organize the people in Lem to fight back, things like that. I think Mira, in terms of where she's at right now, just has this... you know, even as a performer, right, somebody who relies largely on the power of a crowd has a lot of faith in... not specifically individual people, but people plural. Does that make sense?
It does. The capital P, people.
Yes, exactly. So that would be where she's at in terms of like, this is the way that I've always engaged with problems, is trying to put solutions in the hands of large groups of people. I think this is the best way to reduce Crowe's influence here.
Absolutely. And Carla, where does integrity land?
You know, that's very interesting because, like, I, as integrity, started, like the conversation about this, like, between Winsler and Mira, like, integrity has nothing to do with it, per se. Like, it's not like she is involved directly in this. So I was just listening, I forgot English. I was just listening on like what the arguments are for like either destroying it or not. And I was ready to do both. But I think like Mira's argument for doing it for the people, and I think this intrinsic part of integrity of wanting to do good, and it appears that this is like the best for majority of people, and not trusting Crowe to have like sole knowledge of this technology. I think like I did decide to like be on the team Mira, team like doing corporate espionage, doing
Hell yeah.
just like disseminating this knowledge to like a greater group of people.
What do you all think are some like potential knock-on effects of this knowledge like dispersing out into the world? Specifically if it's going to places that like are very like technologically literate or interested, as like, you know, they're trying to send all of the reporters with these blueprints and information. Because my thinking is just like, this does solve the short-term thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think also about the Lady of the Woods getting this kind of info,
Mm-hmm.
getting this kind of info, and like a big part of everyone having similar, like a similar starting line is that now
Yes.
they're all trying to build upon it.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, maybe we get mutually assured destruction, right?
Hey, that's a great solution.
Living.
Yeah, there's been no problems with this ever.
Yeah, I guess there's a few things that could come about it. You could have all of these different parties who get their hands on this information. Like, they'll try to sort of do their own, like, research and methodology into, like, recreating this sort of materials and such in their own way. Some might be more successful than others because of the resources that they have available to them. But then you could also run into the situation where this stuff is very unique and quite advanced, and maybe somebody just doesn't want anyone else to have it, so they might start doing espionage themselves or try to like silently thwart the opposition from actually like performing concrete research into this and advancing it beyond what we have at the moment. So I'm curious to see where it might go in the long term. In the short term, it's it's definitely good for everybody to like get their hands on it for sure.
Yeah.
I just wonder how long is there going to be some sort of like mutually respected boundaries between everybody?
There's going to be a whole other like corporate campaign that could be created from this. You could play a whole campaign of just being like spies for all a corp or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very politically charged for sure.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Oh, I can imagine.
But this, I was just gonna say that it basically just evens out the playing field, which is like reflective of how technology is being advanced in our time, right? Like once like someone discovers something, like it becomes like the baseline for things, and it is used as like a stepping stone to improve on it. So I think like for the most part it's gonna be good. But then eventually greed can seep in, and then like that's when like the bad things come out. Like somehow like when you ask the question, I'm like, oh, a bunch of living wood that just keeps on regenerating, and then they're just gonna keep on building ships, and then now it's like a race for ships so that they will battle ships and start wars. But
Hell yeah.
yeah.
But I also feel like another thing to keep in mind as well is that, you know, if we are essentially releasing these open source blueprints to anybody who can have a copy of the newspaper, we're not just talking about like companies and people in Oshawa, but like anyone who is interested in artificery, anyone who can tinker. If basically anyone can make like living wood, for example, you know, obviously potentially dangerous impacts of ship wars and whatnot, but also like this is a world where there is like fireball magic and not a lot of people have access to, for example, things to get rid of that. Like maybe just living in a world where people's houses are less likely to burn down because it is now extremely cheap and available to have the information to make a living wood house is a good thing just for like regular people who might be interested in this sort of thing. If fucking every guy down the street who's interested in artificery suddenly knows how to make that for you, it's going to become a lot cheaper and a lot more accessible to a lot of people, which is probably good, maybe.
If you probably live in like a smaller community, like very far removed from like the big cities and everything, and you happen to figure out a way to like properly recreate living wood, for example, you're just going to be able to provide for your entire like town or wherever you live because you'll just make it like readily available for everybody.
I mean, think about the wallabies, right? Like in terms of, oh, you know, what if our like farming equipment is constantly breaking down? What if you just never had to worry about that, right? If you're like, you know, an older kind of ailing person whose back isn't great anymore, rough enough that you had to hire fucking Chudley, like probably make their lives a lot easier.
It would be a game changer. It would be a complete game changer.
They could fire Chudley.
Yeah.
Finally.
They could fire Chudley.
Fire Chudley.
All right, I'm sold on this idea now.
Yeah.
And now,
Anything to
and
fire
now
Chudley.
That you don't worry, and now that you don't worry about surviving, now you can just follow your passions. Maybe do the arts.
Yeah, that hierarchy of needs.
The art of farming.
Now, and this is also just like me asking because I think I may have missed it in the episode or it was not mentioned. Did they mention like how hard it is to make living wood or living steel or anything like that? Or if there is like any sort of resource necessary? Because
I do not believe
Don't
so.
recall.
No,
Because
I don't
my
think there was
thought-
any mention.
is like if there's a special secret ingredient to make material living, then we're going to see wars for resources over that secret ingredient.
Dang. What if you have to kill someone to make something a living thing?
Very good.
Oh, God.
Fuck.
Well, remember, I'm pretty sure Young said that, like, or said something along the lines of, it's still, like, in the developmental phase, like, it's like
Yeah,
a prototype.
true.
So it's clearly not perfected yet, so I just wonder, is there something that's required that's necessary for this? Is it going to be an expensive resource? What kind of resource even is it?
We'll find
Yeah.
out.
We will find out.
Souls of the damned.
Sarah, I was curious. When you told Luke, hey, I would love to hang out with Syndra more with the school paper, were you planning to backdoor in, like, all right, we have a cheap way of printing things. Guess what I'm going to do?
This is how we finally get trains.
Oh my God.
I've cut the train timeline like 50%. No. Well, it's interesting because when I told Luke, I think they would like, now that the event planning committee has been shut down, like starting New Club as a front to like do anti-Crow action. My thinking was not that they were going to like legitimately focus in on this newspaper so much as just like the newspaper is the front to do other things. But then it just became a legit newspaper. And so I was not anticipating any of this, and I am incredibly happy about it. It's been so much fun.
I am so glad. And I was also curious about, what, and this is kind of an open question for all of you, but especially like the two of you, Ben and Sarah, with regards to like the spreading of information about golems. Tell me, I imagine that Mira being like far more gung-ho about sharing as much information as possible with as many people as possible makes a lot of sense for her as both an artist and also like a on a mechanical level, a support class. She is always looking to empower other people. I was curious though, tell me, do any of the members of the party actually like have any concerns about the spread of this information? Like, we used to be hardcore on the like, we should keep things a big secret in Wildcliff. And now we're getting to the point where like, no, information is a weapon that we can wield. I was just curious, Carla and Ben, where your characters, like, how they feel about the spread of this information.
Well, based on previous experiences in the podcast, there's been many times where a lot of enemies of ours have actually just used information to get the upper hand and like use it as a weapon against us. And I think it's less so for Winsler about using the same tactics against our enemies, but more so like, this is just a big middle finger to Crowe. I think.
Hell yeah.
Like, it's so focused on screwing Crowe over as much as possible that I don't think we really realize the gravity of what we're doing. We just want to stick it to the guy, really. Mm-hmm. He's done enough harm. Let's fuck him over a little bit,
Yeah.
I think for, thinking about it outside of the episode, like, then you start thinking about more things. Because Integrity has always had the mindset of, like a business person. So there's like a part of her that sort of understands like keeping things secret to gain the upper hand, be more marketable in the, like just like business stuff. But I think over time, as Integrity grew and explored the world with her friends and saw the realities that like people live in, and also seeing the benefits, like the pros and cons of like having like this big business person who may have like a monopoly on different items around Agia and stuff like that. I think she is more accepting that at some point it is necessary to do good by others, and that maybe capitalism and the way that it's working to benefit one and not majority is sort of like, not super good in the long run.
Absolutely.
So I think it's like growth for Integrity. And this is not like just Carla speaking. It's just like how like how I think Integrity would grow from like the experiences that she's had so far in the game.
Of course. Well, I mean, you get to see how like wealth has kind of rotted Crowe. Mm-hmm. From like the inside out. That kind of greed has really caused some moral decay there. More than I was ever expecting with the Feeble Mind Ray. Like in the plan to just, my golems are gaining sentience? Perfect. All I have to do is remove the sentience and we'll be all fine.
Insanely evil, like
That is some like Saturday like morning cartoon villain shit.
Yeah.
Like, and I cannot imagine Ben, like, Winsler wants to give Crowe the middle finger here. I would not be surprised. Is he going to take things even further? Like, how far is Winsler going to push this? Because we did get to see, little invincible Winsler in the combat. No big deal, but is he going to continue pushing this on Crowe? Is he going to take the fight to him?
Chances are they're very likely. Very likely Winsler might push this past the brink,
Yeah, and it sounds like that's what we're gearing up toward anyway, with like, this employee guy being like, oh gosh, well, if this happens, I'm worried Crowe will come after me, and us being like, you know what, like, we've talked around Crowe for ages, right? He's been a presence in our lives who we've been irritated about. Like, at some point, if this person is sincerely doing so many dangerous, evil things, it's like, okay, we need to be proactive here. We need to find some way to like come after this guy and hit him where it hurts.
Winsler does not handle betrayal very well at all. We know this because of previous times when that's happened, where he literally catapulted a fucking crossbow bolt back into the neck of one of Chudley's accomplices. No remorse there. Like, if Winsler and his friends get like double crossed, he has no mercy. And I don't think he knows how to, like, stop himself from, like, murking somebody.
Here's the question. Do you think Ari betrayed you all? Or do you think there is, like, some other golem stuff going on there?
I think there's definitely some other golem stuff going on there. I won't doubt that like, this moment right now definitely feels like, oh my god, I can't believe Ari would betray us. But I don't think Ari was on our side to begin with.
I don't know if this is like Ari consciously doing something that, I mean, it might be, but given the fact that we just learned Crowe has a fucking feeble mind beam, how much free will does Ari really have in any of this,
Here's
maybe he just got subwayed.
Maybe. Here's my theory about it, right? Remember when Ari was found and like completely dismantled in Troyal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think what happened was Crowe got Ari rebuilt, but during the reconstruction process, did some rewiring and maybe did some additional like Crowe Mercantile branded like seal on Ari or whatever. And then although Ari like maintained the same personality and everything because of the Tear of an Angel, they just ended up answering to Crowe. And that was like the perfect agent to really like sneak their way into like past our defenses, really, because I didn't even put it together about the black and gold. Like, I knew that Ari had like a different outfit that was black and gold when they first showed up, like in the arc, and then there was a constant mention of Crowe Mercantile employees wearing the same color schemes, like black and gold. I just didn't pick up on that at all. And then once I made the decision to like, okay, it's Ari, we can let Ari in, that was when I first made the connection, and then I felt so like defeated. It's just like, what? I can't believe I made such a terrible mistake.
You are going to have to fight one of the most beloved NPCs, or at the very least, in my mind, one of the most beloved from like very early on. This is someone who you gave gossip to. Are you all ready to fucking kill Ari?
I don't know.
I think that we should just, here's the thing, log Ari in a room and then yell a bunch of gossip at Ari until Ari gets super overwhelmed by all the gossip that she can't handle it anymore, and then she internally combusts but not die. Like, still salvageable, but just,
You want to fucking I have no mouth and I must scream them?
No.
They'll just be locked in a closet being fed so much information that they can't process it, but they're not dead. Don't worry, there's no release from this suffering.
Eternal prison.
Just for a moment, just until we figure out what to do. It's just a temporary measure.
Oh, yeah.
It's not torture if it's temporary.
Gonna fulfill my promise
Most
to Ari
tortures.
from so long ago. We're gonna lock you in a closet now. That's so fucked.
Carla, you're mine.
I was really just hoping you were gonna say, let's kill them.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think you can knock a golem unconscious. I hate to be the one to break this to you all.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, break the tier.
Oh, but that breaking the tier will kill them.
Okay, but can they be revived afterwards?
Not unless we have another gem or another crystal tier.
Okay, well, we have Celti for that. That will be
We do
problem
not need
for
to
a
go back to
different
Celti
time.
again. We do not need to go back to Celti for like the 5th time. We need to just leave her alone.
Okay, kill Ari or no?
Oh my.
Yeah, everyone vote.
It
Make a
depends
decision,
what
Ben.
happens here?
You're golem boy.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think Ben should be the one to pull the trigger. Not Winsler, Ben.
Ben, yeah.
Well,
Wait, with what gun? You have a gun.
metal crossbows though.
Yeah, that's true. Oh. Well, I am so excited to see what happens next. I don't know about the rest of you, but I would like to thank the 3 of you for joining me today. I know it's a little bit of a shorter one, but we're only covering 2 episodes. We're a little bit tight on time, so I wanted to go ahead and say thank you to our audience, our listeners, for tuning in. And hey, stay tuned because we're about to head down this slide into the DMs.
Down in the pit to the very bowels of the undercampus. Wow.
Welcome back to Slide Into the DMs. I'm your host, Nathan, and joining me today is the enemy of free speech, Luke.
No. Hi, it's me, Luke. I think that
Oh, I get it. You're not speaking freely. That's a good one. Oh, so go ahead to explain it to the audience.
fantastic. Fantastic to be here. Great to be here. Wonderful set of episodes that we're going to be discussing this time.
But we did have a very fun golem combat. How much have you been itching to have the new type golems like in fights these days?
I like the mythos of the gold/yellow golem referenced here and there. Like Yogg goes, I don't like those yellow or like those gold golems. They're kind of condescending. And then it's like, we've never seen those. What are those? And then now we see them as a guard. And then we see them in combat. And let me tell you something, Nathan. Let me tell you something. This is a great failure of me as a dungeon master. I need to get this off my chest. My great failure as a dungeon master, and as it pertains to the sleep spell. I was like, oh, suggestion doesn't work because it's an enchantment, and this guy immune to being charmed. Do you know what else? Do you know what else happens if you're immune to being charmed? The sleep spell can't affect you. So there's a moment in that episode that this is for last CNC, but I didn't edit it before the last CNC, and I went, oh God, I fucked up, and this is goofy and it's silly. And then I was like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all. Because I was already hand waving. Because I was like, yeah, that much HP? Sure, this can be the solution to the problem. Because I knew these fuckers did not just have like 20 HP. And I've been very excited to get into a fight, a scrap with these kind of like reinforced, almost prepared for personal service and service to the crown golems, as we might call them.
Well, they got serviced all right by
got-
Winsler Wallaby. Yeah, you love to see Winsler, get swole.
I do.
but-
I truly do. I don't live. This might be something that the audience doesn't know. I live for moments of physical glory on the part of the characters, as it's like, it's near and dear to my own heart as something that I can very easily describe. Like me being like, yeah, Winsler, your fucking biceps are popping out of the, like, I don't know. It's just, There's something primal about physical descriptions of like violence and vigor that's just like gets the blood pumping, you know? So I welcome Tensor's transformation. It was fantastic. I'll take it every single time over animate objects.
Oh, yes. Without a doubt. It's just easier to keep track of, for one thing.
It's so much easier. That's the problem. That's why I had to kill him, folks, is because he was like, here, 10 extra creatures in initiative order. And I'm not dealing with that.
No, absolutely not. But also with one character becoming stronger, the scales must be balanced.
Yes,
you broke out one of the single most evil spells in Dungeons and Dragons.
100%.
Feeble Mind, which unfortunately we were not able to speak with Sam about their experience with Sereneth being feeble-minded, but I would love to talk with you a little bit about like using that spell in a way that is thoughtful,
Yes.
like an intentional, like treating it with the gravity that it deserves, and not, I have seen other actual playthings where it's treated as like, oh, you turn into a little, like, essentially a little doggy. You know who your friends are.
Yep.
With this, it felt a little bit heavier, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of the heft of that, because in the moment it's just kind of like Sereneth must protect, Sereneth smash. But then you step back and think about like the implication of what this beacon is doing. And the fact that Crowe's like, we need this thing constructed immediately. There's that line from Young in the midst of the combat where he goes like, oh shit, still working on organics. That's not great.
Yep.
Like that's just laced with malevolent intent, obviously. And it's like a truly vile kind of spell that just reduces people into like worms, essentially. Like just there's no, I mean, I'm sure there could be a good use for it, but it is not a more, like, I feel like it's a really rough spell to make an argument for unless there's just something that's, I don't know. Maybe there's a person out there who's just horrifically evil, doing terrible things to everyone, heinous, in charge of big country or big kingdom. Maybe that's a good case for it. Maybe they're in charge of an underground domain and you deliver a box, but now we're getting off in the weeds. Nonetheless.
That wasn't a good use.
No. Nonetheless, I wanted to be careful in my implementation of it, because part of me was just like, I know that Crowe, this is the reason Kurt gets pulled out, is because Crowe wants to build this thing. It also lets me put Kurt in a scene later where he's in contention with Winsler, and that makes a bigger ethical quandary. And the fact that Winsler was so against Kurt even leaving the room and going to do the work in the first place just set that up to be even juicier, and I really appreciate that. And it led to like being able to roleplay Kurt in a bit more of an interesting way for me. But with Feeble Mind, part of it was the story and the narrative implication. And then the other thing in my head is the mechanical implementation, because I would argue, or it's not even arguable, if you are feeble-minded by a particularly middle-leveled spellcaster, it becomes impossible for you yourself to break out of it, right? Because there's no way that you can even achieve the DC due to the demerit to your intelligence or to the negative of your ability bonus. And so it can become a very, in my opinion, destructive spell to use on a player. It's one of these like, do not use these on players kind of spells. And so I knew putting it into a combat encounter, or you can use it on players, but like I feel like there's a very delicate balance to be struck there. And just putting it into a combat encounter with like no real warning that it's coming, and then it just bam hits you, there needs to be extra consideration, which was when I had mechanically, when you exit the light, the effects kind of taper off and stop working, right? This is partially because the beacon is not fully functional to Crowe's specifications, right? You can also intuit that, I think you can easily intuit, and if you haven't already, audience, that Crowe wants to use these on just the golems, right?
Yeah.
Like this is his stopgap solution to them having sentience.
So fucked, by the way. It's like, oh damn it, they glitched, and now here's my patch for this bug.
They forced my hand. I need to fucking decimate their brains and shackle them with magic.
I never meant for them to be sapient. I'm just trying to fix my mistake that I made.
Yep. Just fantastic reasoning from Crowe. Splendid. But they work a bit too powerfully. They affect organics, and we cannot have that. And they have a very limited area of use. And it's not like you can just produce these beacons and put them all over everywhere, and then make like a continent-wide containment field. So obviously, there's a bunch of faults that Young himself manufactured into it, and that makes for an interesting activatable item in a combat, where when they're in the light, it's affecting them. When they're out of the light, they can try to start saving instead of actually just having to rely on like greater restoration or wish, these kind of really high level things that our party specifically does not have access to.
No.
At least not immediate on hand kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was really fun. God, I really loved the use of it, but you touched on something that I want to now bring into the forefront of our focus, which is the Winsler and Kurt conflict that we had in this second episode, where we have the desire to destroy technology that could be used for nefarious purposes. And Kurt is over here like, no, we can make so many people's lives better. Yeah. Tell me, what are... we had the like self-repairing sail, like the living wood, living iron.
Yes.
Things of that nature. I would love to hear any other like inventions that you had in mind that didn't make the cut. Or
absolutely,
if there was anything that you were like, I need to make sure that I have inventions here that Kurt can defend, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of those things, the mirrors specifically, are kind of like something that's on the side. There's pretty much, okay, we need to go back to Troil to understand some of the connotations of these things. Troil had that like living glass dome over the city, which when it was broken would fix itself. Even in Our Lady of the Deep's halls, that kind of mesh net over the vat, that was like a living steel kind of mesh net. So we can see these things in operation, but like the wood and stone and slab of steel, kind of like larger things that houses or ships or whatever structures would be made of, seems to be failing. It seems to be only like fragile things or very small things that seem to be successful. So that's something I needed to get out of there, because I think it's just like the predominant kind of a cool technology that's emergent, blah, blah, blah. It's related to some of the research that's going on in Our Lady of the Deeps. It's all kind of like mixed in. It's stuff that was in Troil and stuff that I thought was in Troil that might not have been explored, that I think that there was at least on my end, narrative way to rationalize why Our Lady of the Deep might have had artifacts or research or some sort of notes that would help bolster that research, or that those kind of like technology projects and bring them forwards in progress. That's nitty gritty and behind the scenes kind of stuff. We can point to a couple of things. There's these sails in the Young developmental lab. We can point back to Troil. There is an airship program that's ongoing. He's trying to make flying ships, and it's failing and unsuccessful. And then we have the remnants of like a ship, and it's all scorched to bits. And Young is kind of, the implication being like, oh, we tried to make it out of these like pieces of materials that if something terrible happened, it would just fix itself in the air. And that failed, right? And so that kind of stuff is like connected together. Those two projects are connected together. And that's generally what we focused on. Another one that was kind of relevant is there's the mirrors there. There was like 16 mirrors, 15 of which were smashed and broken, and one was still functional. If you think back to Troil, there was like a magnetic wall that Kurt was stuck to that led to a terrible cat encounter. They never went into Workshop E, but if they had gone into that room, it was like a disenchantment kind of mirror where there was like a magnetic pull in the mirror, and you could take a sentient item and you would take its sentience away and trap it in a mirror, right? So it was no longer in like a dagger, and it would now be in a mirror and be something that you could talk to, like the mirror, like, you know, magic mirror.
Absolutely.
Those kind of things. That didn't come up. We didn't discuss that. We didn't go into depth on that one, partially because I think it's a little less redeemable. And I don't think it would be something Kurt would be like, oh, you guys know the one where we trap sentient people inside mirrors for the entire of their existence?
The prison cell.
It's a prison.
The people can use the prison cells.
There's that one. And then there's other technology projects that in an ideal world, we'll get exposition and villainous monologuing on the subject of.
Gotta love villainous.
Ideally, an ideal world. And that connects to the map room that we saw in the last cluster of episodes, and like star charts and desert stuff. And it's like, oh, this is all pointing to something. What is this pointing towards? And that's pointing towards some other technology projects. That
Crowe's making GPS.
Absolutely.
I knew it.
Yes. You called the shot. That's 100% it. The monologue was going to be how he was trying to start a GPS business.
Yes. That's where all the real money is. But I think this is it's an interesting conflict that you've set up here that we haven't previously gotten to see with Crowe too much, where it is previously the like silver lining to dealing with Crowe is like, has resources that we might be able to use for ourselves, and not necessarily, he is developing things that could better society.
Yeah.
My question is like, this, and this is a hard one to phrase properly.
Yeah.
Like, any chance that he could use these things for good? Or
Nathan. To answer that question, let's delve into the real world.
Yeah.
Let's talk about hypothetical people in our real world. Does there exist people with absurd amount of wealth and resources that say that they're going to make something cool and say it's for the betterment of everyone? Yes. Could it really be for the betterment of everyone? It could. With that much money? It could. It could. Is it really? Fuck no. It serves to make them richer. Could this stuff make Crowe richer or make the world good and Crowe just becomes this altruistic deity level mythology figure who's like, Crowe ushered in the new era? He would fucking love that, right? That is like the slimmest chance. Like, sure, he might become some deity level mythos figure of conventional wealth.
Yeah.
And just like this, great inventor. Did you know that Crowe does all the work himself? He just actually is better than all the engineers he hires. And he just does it. He does their job anyways. It's totally like that.
I wonder who you're referencing.
I wonder
here,
who that
Luke.
could be about. Nonetheless, can these things actually be used for good? I genuinely, yes, they can.
Yeah.
I think that it's outlined the reasons why this is actually valuable substance. It is a valuable, especially like the regrowing of materials. Like, holy fuck, right? Like, imagine that. That's world changing. Especially if you get it in the hands of the common person. That is world changing stuff. The difficulty is getting into the hands of everyone. There's like 50 copies that are going out to who knows who's actually going to get hands on those.
Speaking of, I did want to was that even on your radar as a potential solution to the conflict, is spreading the knowledge around?
I really enjoyed that as a solution, and let me tell you, Nathan, maybe this is better served as the answer to a different question, but we're going to short circuit to that question, which is the Warbler. Yeah. Isn't it fun how player choice has this radical effect on how the game plays? If you think that I wasn't aiming to get these fuckers into the Warbler from minute one, then you're not listening to the fucking show. I had a conversation with Carla. She was like, oh my God, it was so cool how we started, like after this session, Sarah was like, I love when we can do the thing and you just adapt to it on the fly. I'm like, yeah, adapt to it on the fly. Or like Carla was like, dang, it was really cool. And then you had something prepared. Like, oh my God, that whole session must have been improvised. And I was like, no, I prepared like 3 things. One was the fight, one was like afterwards and like the research, and then one was I need to get these fuckers to the Warbler by any means necessary. So like, I think it's really a really cool solution to the problem, and I'm very glad that they like heard Kurt out on that and didn't just torch the room.
Yeah,
I think that shows like a level of genuine altruism on the side of the players. The fact that they're like, okay, no matter what, we're gonna use our resources right now in this moment to fuck Crowe over in this way, right? And then getting Young generally on side with that as a means to like get the research out there and to not just destroy his like his body of work over the last 2 years of his life.
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
As well as like, yeah, exactly. And then bringing like Kurt, or letting Kurt argue for these things and having this interesting dynamic between Kurt and them. And then we get to see like the Warbler in full action. It's like a super fun kind of like, and no one knows how a printing press. I was shocked. Obviously I used like not an actual, like I don't think a genuine printing press that you'd use to make newspapers, but like a rolling press. And I think you use that to make prints and stuff. So I obviously have a sphere of ignorance here, but to know that none of them at all knew how a newspaper was made was shocking to me, quite frankly. Maybe that's such a minor thing, but
I just assumed we were all copying it down by hand.
That would be fantastic. But like, I really enjoy these scenes where you're like, okay, you're in this kind of fantastical room. You're all, you guys have the floor. And I think that every DM is always pushing to like throw the spotlight to their players and just say, go, run, show me what you got. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that this episode was like the second episode here, 238 was just such a spectacular display of that. Even if I was like, oh, I'm trying to get them in the Warbler the entire time, that was such a loose kind of thing where it's so adaptable to anything that does come up, right? And I'm really happy with how the solution, I guess, to that social encounter went. I think it's on brand. I think it's like it's just so in theme with the rest of this arc and the rest of the campaign and the progression of these characters, etc. Right?
Yeah. Were you expecting the Warbler to play such a big role when the idea was first pitched? Because it came about because it was like, Mira and Syndra should hang out more.
Yes.
And so it was like, student council? Nah. Been there, done that.
That's done. Yeah.
Student newspaper?
Time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people made jokes about, is there a student newspaper at Wycliffe years and years, back in like fucking 2019, at the genesis of the podcast. They were like, is there a student newspaper on campus? I was like, no, leave me alone. That sounds like a lot of work. Because then people are gonna be like, what's in the paper? And I'm gonna be like, this. But fuck, I did not expect it to be so. It's just such a wellspring of great ideas and cool interactions, and I've been ever since the Warbler. I don't think there's been like a single episode, maybe one or two episodes, that I haven't gone, the Wycliffe Warbler, the Warbler. Let's do the Warbler thing. Hey, there's a word, like it's so fun. It's very exciting for me. Player organization and player self-organization of like, I'm going to make a thing and I'm going to be in charge of the thing and this is how I want the thing. I live for this. It's much easier, I think, done in a home game, because in a home game, it's a lot more relaxed. And you can be like, yeah, you're the leader of a paladin order. Here's your castle. What do you want your castle to be like? And then you set your player off to the side, and they're like, this is what my castle is. And they're drawing a little map for themselves and being like all happy. And
it's
they're
an
like,
audience of one.
Exactly. You're like, figure out your finance. For a specific type of player there, you can say, this is how much the castle keeps to run. Here's all your expenses. Go balance your spreadsheet while I deal with these other rapscallions. And they will sit there and have fun for the next 3 hours. And then they'll be like, best session of D&D ever. It was just shopping and hiring people. It was great. I did it all in Excel, which is not a podcast, but is a very fun way to play D&D.
You're really putting Sarah on blast. Like, I DM'd for her today, and she had to adjust her spreadsheet.
The finance spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Nonetheless, though, player self-organization, especially, it is so splendid. I'm so, like, the Warbler is like a fucking blessing for a DM, like to have like, again, like this hub that your player has created and has a very like innate buy-in towards. It lets me be like, Runa sends you a letter. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place in like this cryptic fashion. And then they're like, and then immediately Mira's like, this is a problem. We need to deal with this. We need to save my reporter. And then I can also be like, your reporter feeds you information. You don't have to go find that information. Here it is, free. The DM, I want you to have this. Fred is on a boat with his aunts going somewhere. Crowe knew. He told him. He's out of it. He's not brainwashed. Do something. Think about it. It also really gets me going.
And it also provides a way for the player to engage and ask questions to NPCs. Like, that's the thing that like I think any DM is going to be excited by is the perfect. You have a reason to engage with the NPCs.
That's it. Engagement. When a player is so invested that they create something, an organization or a group of themselves, and it's them pushing that kind of envelope forwards and thinking about that, then they're engaged in the game in a much like deeper sense, right? Like a lot of DMs think like, how do I hook my players? And you throw these surface level little hooks at them. You hook your players by making them or baiting them into getting engaged and creating things in the world, and then that's that's the important stuff. That's the plot now. You do that.
Exactly, because like that's the thing, right? Whenever someone begins playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time, what's the most fun part? The most fun part is getting to create a character. And because they want to be able to engage with that world to create something.
Oh, what's my person like? I never thought about this before. I guess this is what they're like, right?
And then they get to create a fixture within the setting itself. That's 100%. A great way to rope them in.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like I've fallen off on this in recent years, but letting your players just like stick their hands in the clay and be like, there's my thumbprints on that. It's fun. It's really fun, I think, for everyone at the table.
Absolutely.
If one person with a singular creative mind is making something, it becomes monotonous. Everything seems the same after the same after the same. It's all cylinders. It's all ocean. It's all water this and water that. And, oh, it was scary and blood the entire time. But when your players involve themselves, it's thumbprints. It's golems. We would never have this golem stuff if not for, like, Ben and Sarah, honestly.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Like... it all started because Winsler found a notebook in the restricted archives and was like, I'm going to build a golem now. This is my thing. I'm just going to build a golem now. And that's how Yogg got created. The whole golems being absent from campus and Crowe making new golems and then replacing them came about because Ben, out of character, was like, man, the golem, after the Polishirium shit with fucking Stowe the first time, he was like, damn, the golems are going to fucking hate us now. And I was like, you know what? They're gonna leave. You're right, and that opens this, and then Sarah, Mira asking like, "Hey, what do you think? What's going on in your head?" Instead of just treating it like background, kind of, oh, it's a robot in the background. Like, you're a person. What's up with you? Tell me about you. And then we're here now, right? And your players engaging with your story and driving your plot lines ahead, giving them the plot lines they're engaged in is really important, and it makes the game fun. You might have heard in past CNCs that I personally was pushing, and I was like, we're gonna go to the astral projection stuff immediately. Stop, smell the roses, see what your players want to do, and we're doing that. And I'm not unhappy because we're doing that. I'm happy because my players are having a blast with this plot thread that they created, right? That's D&D.
That's D&D, baby. I cannot think of a better button to go out on. That is just beautiful. Well said, my friend. It's always so fun to look back and see how the dominoes have led us to this point. And it's so fun to look forward to see the next dominoes that are getting knocked down. The next one being the Wildcliff Warbler is going to be shut down by Ari.
It's going to be annihilated.
The fucked up thing is that Ari is showing up to turn it into a gossip rag. It's 100% just like, oh, we're taking this from the Times to the Inquirer.
It's going to be fucking TMZ.
Oh, it's going to be rough.
I need to say this. I need to say this so badly. One of my favorite parts is Young being like, oh my god, you guys are corporate spies. You're going to cut my head off and send it to Crowe. And they're like, no, we're not corporate spies. This isn't corporate espionage. 5 minutes later, oh my god, it's corporate espionage. The assassins are here. The Pinkertons are here.
Oh god, I'm excited to see the Pinkerton combat.
Oh, so am I. A lot of people are kind of spent. Mira's very spent. Winsler has some spell slot shit going on. Serum's fine. Integrity's a rogue. I'm hype. You know?
It's gonna be a good time.
I hope so.
Well, dear listener, thank you so much for joining us. Luke, thank you for joining me.
Yes.
And if you want to join us a little bit earlier, if you're listening to this on the public feed, hop on down to the Patreon, patreon.com/trialsandtrebs. And if you want to toss a few bucks our way per month, you can listen to this a bit earlier.
Appreciated.
You get to see some fun DM notes.
Bloopers, DM notes. This episode, this early. I won't advertise patron NPCs anymore because that ship's pretty much sailed.
Yeah, we're... Sorry. You can still give a lot of money if you want. You just won't get an NPC out of it.
Yeah.
But if that's not the only place where you want to throw your money at us, head on over to trebmerch.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Buy shirts, stickers, hats, bags, umbrellas,
Yeah.
suitcases, hairbrushes.
Hopefully more stuff will be in the store soon. I know we say that a lot. Follow us on Instagram. Go to the Discord if you want updates on any of that stuff. Go to the Discord if you want to just be like, hey, when is there going to be more merch? Ask Carla that question. She will have a great answer for you.
Thank you all so much for listening. And also, if you had a good time, leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcast. And naturally, we cannot look at anything less than a 5-star. They just don't show up.
Yeah, I'm blind.
Don't test
There's
us.
A tech problem.
Don't test us though. The 5 stars are just the only ones that actually reach our eyes. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the next episode of Trials and Trebuchets. Oh, there's a loud motorcycle outside.
Race car.
No, yeah. I'm driving out of here.